Okay, hello. So I just finished reading this book. Well, I actually listened to it. It's an audiobook. And I listened to it, and it's called, I know it's backwards. I'll fix this. It's called Animal Farm. It's by George Orwell. It was written in, let's see. (1946). It was published in 1946, and I just finished listening to it. So I listened to it as an audiobook, but normally I read books. And so what I want to do today is do a quick book review. It shouldn't be that long. I just want to talk about this book because it's I'm a teenager, so I tend to read young adult novels. I know not all teenagers do, but I tend to very much enjoy young adult novels. And so I don't read a lot of classics. I've read A Wrinkle in Time. I've read Where the Red Fern Grows because that was required by school. I've read Watson's Go to Birmingham, which I believe is required. Well, it's not required by school, but or it was, but I believe I would consider that a classic. I've read The Outsiders, so I've read a few classics. I haven't read nearly as many as I wish I had. And so I've decided to start doing my own reading list of books where I want to read books that are considered classics that haven't been required for school that might be or might not be just because they're good books. And so one of the books my family has recommended that I decided to read was Animal Farm. Now, normally I would read this, and it's actually a really quick read. I mean, it's 128 pages. It's like this thick. And, I mean, pages are kind of like, it's a quick read. It's a quick read. And so, but it's a great book, and I would recommend reading it because it's a timeless classic. So it is a classic. And now some classics, like specifically Where the Red Fern Grows, I have trouble relating to because it's a very old-fashioned book. It takes place in a time that we're not used to living in. We're like, what the heck is this? We've never heard of this. This makes no sense to us. Or this is such a foreign concept to us. So sometimes I know modern readers can have trouble enjoying classics because they can't relate. And the biggest thing that's important when reading a book or interpreting any kind of art is the ability to relate, the ability to, as all humans, we have this ability to relate. And so it's our relation to that piece of art that is how we interpret that art. And so a lot of, like me, most of my classmates, when they read Where the Red Fern Grows, they cried. I'm not gonna spoil the end, I'm just saying, they did. I didn't. Because I had trouble relating. Just because I didn't necessarily relate to the main character, I didn't really relate to the story. I mean, I thought it was a sweet book. I loved the book, but I didn't cry. I had trouble relating. And so, but this book is a book, and while it was written about, I believe it says, it was, it was written about Soviet Russia, I believe, was his inspiration, and it was a book it's a book that's supposed to be against communism, but it's a really interesting book because in our modern times America has a president, Donald Trump, who some people like and some people don't, and it's actually very cool because while I understood it was written originally about Soviet Russia, I interpreted the way the government was to be a failure, not a failure, but what our country is coming to, what I believe America is coming to it. So it's a really interesting read because basically and I'm not going to spoil it, but basically it's this book, and it starts with these animals, and they live on this farm, right? Well, on this farm. It's called Animal Farm. Of course they live on a farm. But what they do is they realize that their farmer, the person, Mr. Jones, or Farmer Jones, is very cruel to them. And so they're like, we're going to start a revolution. So this one pig, because the pigs are the smartest animals. Those are the ones with the brains. I don't know why. Maybe it's because they're humans, intellectuals are pigs. I don't really know. And so the pigs are the smart ones. So Major says, hey, we're going to start a revolution. And while maybe in my lifetime we won't be freed, we're going to try. And we're going to stand up for what we believe in. And the first little bit is them fighting for this revolution that they want to believe in because, I mean, they do. And so they come up with this song, The Beasts of England, and it's their theme song. It's like the Star-Spangled Banner for us Americans. And it's like, we are fighting for a better world. We are fighting for a place that we want to live in, where animals are free to be animals, and it's really cool. And so then they win, and I believe it says, I believe that's in like whenever you read the usual like the inside, that might be even what it says. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. But basically, so they win this revolution, right? And they have this song, The Beast of England. And so, but Major, the dude who started it, dies. And so the pigs left over have to continue on his ideals. So there's these two opposing pigs that fight on literally everything. And there's Snowball and Napoleon. And so most of the book is this fight between Snowball and Napoleon and how they oppose different ideals. And then eventually, something happens, and it gets down to one of them, right? I'm not going to say who or why, but basically the one that's left starts turning everyone against, so they ended up having to fight the humans together, all of the animals. But then the one who wins starts rewriting history and starts making the animals doubt their own thoughts. And so they start believing that who they thought was a hero really wasn't a hero and was working with Farmer Jones the whole time and was this villain. And so it's this whole journey of watching the animals in this environment believe these lies that are fed to them because they don't know better. It's like, and it's very heartbreaking because they remember kind of that Jones was cruel to them. And they remember this. But what they don't realize is that the new leader is just as cruel. He's just lying to them by saying it's not. So he's saying that they are free and that they're what they wanted and they have achieved this freedom and that they're a self-sustained farm of animals run by animals, and they have these 7 commandments that they follow. And so that were set up when they first started the revolution. And so, but as time goes on, as in any government, they start altering the rules. So one rule was no animal shall sleep in beds. No animal shall sleep in a bed. But then the pigs, the leaders, start sleeping in beds. And so in the middle of the night, without anyone realizing it, they alter the commandment to say no animal shall sleep in beds with sheets. And so it's a very interesting book, and that's just one example. And throughout the book, it's kind of heartbreaking to watch as this ideal that you really want to believe in because it's a really inspiring ideal. Let's fight for animal kind. Like, I know it's a little discriminatory against my species considering I am a human, but it's something you can get inspired by, and it's something that, I mean, in the beginning, you want to fight for it. You're like, oh my gosh, go animalism, and go these animals who just want to fight for freedom. And it's very heartbreaking to watch as this thing that you really want to succeed as it crumbles and falls apart. And by the end, I'm trying to figure out how to say this but not without spoiling it. But basically, in the end, it's such a bittersweet ending. Because this whole time, as you read this book, you really want them to win. Like, not win, but you really want them to be able to succeed because it's what they're fighting for. And you watch slowly as the pigs, the leaders, start becoming more like us. Well, not like us. I mean, I'm not corrupt, obviously. But becoming more like humans, becoming more corrupt, becoming worse. Doing this, doing that, lying, cheating, stealing. And it's heartbreaking to watch as this, it's very frustrating because you want them to succeed. You want this to work out. I mean, I don't know, maybe you don't. Maybe if you read the book, you're like, oh my God, I want them to fail. But like, as a reader, I want them to succeed. And so it's very heartbreaking to watch as the characters, as they go through this, everything falls apart. And it's a very sad thing because it shows, and it's so relatable too. Like, I can see it in my country. We have these beliefs, make America great again. But we have these fundamental core beliefs that all men are created equal, that we all have rights, we all have freedom. But in recent years, you can see as they've started to fall apart, and we started to lose sight of what our original ideals were, because it's been long. Make America great again is not what our founding fathers set up to do. And they would hate that slogan. When was America great? Well, it's greater now than it's ever been. And that's what they do in here, too. I know some people are like, why is she relating to America? Because it can be related, and it's a very real thing to discuss. And so, I mean, it's hard because you want them to succeed, and by the end, you're like, please, please, like, I'm mad at you, but, like, literally, I finished listening to it, and I just screamed. Actually, I screamed a curse word. Do not do that in front of your parents, or your little sister. Might get in trouble. But I mean, it's frustrating, because it's a great story. It's a great book. But it's one of those books that, while it's great, it's kind of sad. It's one of those sad, great books. So it's also really cool because it's very philosophical and it makes you think. I mean, it doesn't like to understand the book. You don't necessarily have to think, because I mean, you can understand it. But because of the way it works out, you start thinking about things on a different level. You start thinking, well wait. What? And it kind of blows your mind. Because you're like, you start thinking, well, what if our leader, what if this is happening to me right now and I don't even know it? And, I mean, what if you get stuck in this, like, it's such a good book, and honestly, go read it. It's probably at a library, maybe even at your school. If not, it's literally on YouTube, for free, a 3-hour audiobook that you can pause and just, like, take a screenshot or write it down where you left off. Listen to it. It took me like a day. I didn't start it today, but I mean, I could have finished it today. I'd had like 50 minutes in from a couple weeks ago. Finished it today, and I mean, it's a good book, and it's a story that really everyone should read. And so yeah, I'd rate it a 10 out of 10. I don't know if I'm doing a rating. 10 out of 10. Go George Orwell. Orwell, that's his name. Yep, that's his name. I can read. And like, I have some favorite quotes in here too. So like, I have one that is it's in the book and it's near the end, and it says let's see if I can find it actually real quick. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. I mean, can you relate to that? That has been a motto for not a motto for our country, but I mean, do you remember 1960s? Segregation? All men are equal, but whites are more equal than blacks. Like what? And my favorite is the ending quote, because it's so cool. 12 voices were shouting in anger, and they were all like, no question now what had happened to the faces of the pigs. The creatures outside looked from pig to man, and from man to pig, and from pig to man again. But it already was impossible to tell which was which. And there's quotes like that, those little hidden gems, that really speak measures. Because if you change just a few of the words, if you change the pigs to a person or this or that, and if you change all animals to all people, it becomes really, really intense. And it's a great book because it's a great book to talk about and to think about. And what it does is, if you're talking about it correctly, like, hopefully, people, if you watch this, hopefully you do this in the comments. I don't really know. See if this succeeds. If not, well then, I don't know. It's a great thing. While you debate about it, you can debate on how you interpret it, but because it's against, like, something that doesn't really, I mean, it's written about communism. So, I mean, unless you're, like, a communist and you're like, oh, go communism, which, another thing I want to talk about that, but anyway, you can debate about how you interpret it in a friendly, nice, calm manner. Be like, hey, there's this quote here. I really like this, and this is how I see this. And so it's also a book because it's so, like, not vague, but because it's so, like, different. It's about animals. It's so relatable and yet completely interpretable the way you want. And so, as this video comes to a close, I just want everyone to know that this is a great book. You should go out and read it. And thank you for watching. I'll hopefully do more of these. But yeah, I did a book review today. So yeah, enjoy. Bye.